The transport ship carrying Ambassador Sarah Chen and her team emerged from faster-than-light travel near the Nexus. The massive space station hung in the void like a small moon, glittering with lights from 1,000 docking ports. Ships of every imaginable design came and went, representing dozens of alien species that called the Galactic Council home. Sarah stood at the observation window, her hands clasped behind her back. She was 42 years old with sharp eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. Behind her, 3 other diplomats reviewed their notes in silence. They all knew what was at stake. Humanity's first real introduction to galactic civilization would happen today. The Nexus docking master granted them permission to land. As their ship settled into Bay 47, Sarah took a deep breath. "Remember," she told her team, "we smile, we listen, and we show them only what they need to see." The station's interior was breathtaking. Corridors stretched for miles, filled with beings that looked like they came from fever dreams. Tall creatures with 4 arms bargained with floating jellyfish-like aliens. Robots walked beside organic beings covered in feathers or scales or things Sarah had no name for. 2 guards met them at the entrance to the council chamber. They were Kavros, 7 feet tall with dark red scales and yellow eyes that looked at the humans like insects. The larger one bared his teeth in what might have been a smile. "The primitives have arrived," he said in a hissing voice. "Try not to embarrass yourselves." Sarah said nothing. She simply nodded politely and walked past them. The council chamber was enormous. 47 seats arranged in a circle, each one occupied by a representative from a different species. At the center was a raised platform where visitors could speak. The air smelled strange, a mixture of different atmospheres and technologies working to keep everyone alive in one shared space. High Prelate Tsar then of the Kavros Empire sat in the largest seat. His scales were darker than his guards, almost black, with scars running along his neck. He looked down at Sarah with barely hidden contempt. "So," his voice boomed across the chamber, "Earth finally joins us. How quaint." Sarah stepped onto the central platform. Her voice was calm and clear. "On behalf of humanity, I thank the Council for this opportunity. We come in peace, seeking friendship and cooperation with all civilized species." Laughter rippled through some of the seats. An insectoid being with multiple eyes clicked its mandibles. "Friendship? You barely understand quantum physics. What could you possibly offer us?" Sarah smiled. "We offer our uniqueness. Every species here has something special to contribute. We hope to learn from you and perhaps teach you something in return." "Teach us?" Zarthan leaned forward. "You travel at speeds we mastered 10,000 years ago. Your weapons are projectiles that would bounce off our shields. What could you possibly teach us?" Sarah met his gaze without flinching. Restraint, the word hung in the air. Several council members shifted in their seats. "Restraint?" Zarthan laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Is that what you call weakness on your world?" "We call it wisdom," Sarah replied. "The choice to not do something even when you can is often the mark of true intelligence." Another council member spoke up, this one resembling a tall bird with silver feathers. "Enough philosophy. As per council law, all new members must demonstrate their military capabilities. We must assess whether you can defend your own borders or if you require protection." Sarah nodded. She had expected this. "Of course. Admiral Okoye is waiting in orbit with a demonstration fleet." The council chamber's central display activated, showing the space around the Nexus. 3 human ships appeared, each one about 800 feet long. They were angular and gray, with visible weapons ports and basic shield emitters. By galactic standards, they looked outdated by centuries. Sar then studied the ships with barely concealed amusement. "These are your warships?" "These are what we brought to show you," Sarah said carefully. The distinction was subtle, but a few council members noticed. The bird-like alien tilted its head. "An interesting choice of words, Ambassador." The demonstration proceeded. The human ships fired kinetic weapons, missiles, and basic energy weapons at target drones. They performed combat maneuvers that were adequate but unimpressive. Their shields held against simulated attacks but showed obvious weaknesses. Everything about the display screamed second-rate military power, exactly as planned. Back on Earth, Admiral Marcus Okoye watched the demonstration from the command center deep beneath the Atlantic Ocean. Around him, holographic displays showed the real human fleet, 500 ships that made the demonstration vessels look like toys. Technology that had taken decades of secret development, hidden from everyone. Even most of Earth's own governments. They're buying it, said his second-in-command. Captain Rodriguez, of course they are, Okoye replied. His voice was deep and thoughtful. They see what they expect to see. A primitive species trying to play with the big powers. Does it bother you? Letting them think we're weak? Okoye was quiet for a moment. He was 58 years old, and he had spent his entire adult life in military service. Everything in his training screamed at him to show strength, to never back down. But he was also wise enough to see the bigger picture. Better they underestimate us than fear us, he finally said. Fear makes people do stupid things. If they knew what we really have, they might try to destroy us before we become a threat. This way we buy time. Time to learn about them. Time to build alliances. Time to be ready if diplomacy fails. And if it does fail, Okoye's expression hardened. Then they'll learn why we were holding back. Back on the Nexus, the demonstration concluded. The council members discussed among themselves in various languages, their translation devices creating a cacophony of sound. Finally, Zarthan spoke. Your military is adequate for defending your home system. Barely. You are granted provisional council membership. You will pay the standard tribute, follow all council regulations, and accept that your voice in council matters will be limited until you prove yourselves worthy of full status. Sarah wanted to laugh. Tribute, limited voice, these were terms you used with conquered peoples, not equals. But she kept her face neutral. We accept these terms, she said. But I want to be clear about something. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as she could. What you have seen today is what we choose to show you. We are here for peace, for cooperation, for building something better together. But do not mistake our desire for peace as inability to defend ourselves. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. Zarthan's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat, little human? It's a warning, Sarah replied calmly. We hope you never need to understand the difference. The High Prelate laughed, and many council members joined him. They thought it was the desperate bluster of a weak species trying to save face. Only a few of the older, wiser council members stayed silent. They had seen many species rise and fall over the centuries, and they knew that the most dangerous beings were often the ones who seemed harmless. Sarah and her team left the council chamber with their heads high. They had accomplished their mission. Earth was now part of the galactic community. The mask was in place. Now they could only hope that the mask would never need to come off. But in her heart, Sarah knew the truth. She had studied history. She knew what happened when arrogance met restraint, when cruelty pushed too far against patience. She knew that warnings, no matter how clear, were often ignored until it was too late. The reckoning had not begun, but its seeds had been planted. 15 years changed everything and nothing at all. Ambassador Sarah Chen looked older now. The gray in her hair had spread, and lines of stress marked her face. She sat in her office on the Nexus, reviewing the latest report from the frontier colonies, and her hands trembled with barely controlled anger. 3 more human freighters had been attacked near the outer rim. The ships were destroyed, their crews killed and their cargo stolen. The attackers were Kavros privateers, everyone knew it. But when Sarah brought evidence to the council, they simply shrugged. Space is dangerous, High Prelate Zarthan had said with a grin. Perhaps your ship should travel with better protection. Oh, but wait, your military is so limited. Perhaps you should hire Kavros escorts. For a reasonable fee, of course. It was extortion dressed up as concern, and there was nothing Sarah could do about it through official channels. Earth had changed in 15 years, too. When humanity first joined the council, they were excited, hopeful. They imagined trading knowledge, sharing cultures, building friendships across the stars. Instead, they found a galaxy that treated them like servants. The council imposed trade restrictions on human goods. Earth's manufactured items were subject to tariffs that made them non-competitive. Human colonies were denied access to certain regions of space because older council members claimed historical rights. When humans protested unfair treatment, they were reminded of their provisional status and told to be grateful for what they had. And always, there was the tribute. Every year, Earth had to send resources, technology, and wealth to the Council. It was supposedly to fund shared infrastructure and defense. In reality, it was a tax on being the newest and weakest member. Sarah's assistant, David Park, entered the office with fresh coffee. He was 30 years old now, having started as a junior diplomat when Earth first joined the Council. He had watched his idealism slowly drain away year by year. Another rejection, he said, putting a datapad on Sarah's desk. The council denied our petition to investigate the freighter attacks. Same as last time. Sarah closed her eyes. Did Tsar then give a reason? He said the evidence was insufficient and that humans were probably staging the attacks themselves for sympathy. Of course he did. Sarah took a sip of coffee. It was terrible. Made from recycled station water, but it was familiar. Small comforts mattered out here. Ambassador, David said carefully. Some of the junior diplomats are asking questions. They want to know why we keep taking this. They've heard rumors about military projects back home. They're asking if the rumors are true. Sarah looked at him steadily. What rumors? That we're not as weak as we appear. That we've been building something in secret. That all of this submission is an act. And what do you think, David? He was quiet for a moment. I think we've been warning them for 15 years. I think every time they push us, you tell them they're making a mistake. And I think they keep laughing. So either we really are helpless or we're the most patient people in the galaxy. Sarah smiled grimly. Patience is a human virtue. But even patience has limits. On Earth, Admiral Okoye stood in the command center, now relocated to a facility on the dark side of the moon. Around him, holographic displays showed the progress of Project Reckoning. That was what they called it. Though the name was classified at the highest levels, 500 warships had become 700. The technology had advanced beyond anything the Council possessed. Quantum entanglement weapons that could strike targets across light years instantly. Singularity drives that made ships move faster than anything in known space. Nanite swarms that could disassemble enemy vessels at the molecular level. AI systems that could predict enemy movements before they happened. And the gravity lances, Okoye's personal favorite. Weapons that could create temporary black holes and crush entire fleets. Admiral, Captain Rodriguez approached him. She was a colonel now, promoted for her work on the tactical network systems. We just received word from New Harmony Colony. They're detecting unusual ship movements in their sector. New Harmony was one of Earth's newest colonies. 50,000 people, mostly families, living on a beautiful world with purple oceans and 3 moons. It was far from Earth, far from protection. Okoye felt his stomach tighten. What kind of ships? Tellurian Combine Battle Group. 20 warships moving directly toward the colony. The Tellurian Combine was an insectoid species that controlled much of the galactic trade networks. They were allies of the Kavros Empire and had been pushing for humans to be expelled from the Council entirely. They claimed humanity was bad for business. Mobilize the 6th Fleet, Okoye ordered. Quantum jump, maximum speed. I want them at New Harmony in 4 hours. Sir, if we reveal our jump capabilities, I don't care. Get our people there now. But 4 hours was too long. The Tellurian attack was swift and brutal. They bombarded New Harmony's main settlement from orbit, claiming it was a response to illegal colonization of Combine claimed space. The fact that the Combine had made no such claim until that morning was conveniently ignored. When the 6th Fleet arrived, the bombardment was over. 3,000 civilians were dead. The settlement was rubble. Survivors huddled in emergency shelters, traumatized and terrified. Admiral Okoye stood on the bridge of the flagship, looking at the devastation on the main screen. His jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. Around him, the bridge crew was silent. Many were crying. Sir, the communications officer said quietly, we're receiving a transmission from the Tellurian Battle Group. They say this was a lesson. They say humanity needs to learn its place. Okoye wanted to give the order right then. Unleash everything. Show them what human weapons could do. Turn their fleet into debris and make them understand the mistake they had made. But he couldn't. Not yet. Not without authorization. Take us back to Earth, he said, his voice hollow. We need to report to the Council of Nations. Sarah Chen received the news while in the council chamber. She was in the middle of a routine session when the message came through on her private communicator. She read it once, then again unable to process the words. New Harmony, 3,000 dead. A lesson. She stood up slowly. The council members noticed and turned to look at her. Sarah walked to the center platform, her legs moving automatically. Humanity has suffered an attack, she said. Her voice was shaking, but whether from grief or rage she could not tell. The Tellurian Combine has bombarded one of our colonies. 3,000 civilians are dead. Men, women, children. Tsar then leaned back in his seat. How unfortunate. Perhaps your colonists should be more careful about where they settle. It was an unprovoked attack on an unarmed civilian population, Sarah said. Each word came out like a knife. This is a war crime by any definition. War crime? A Tellurian representative clicked its mandibles. We were defending our territorial claims. If humans cannot understand basic galactic law, perhaps they should return to their primitive little world. Sarah looked around the chamber. Some council members looked uncomfortable. Others seemed amused. None of them looked like they cared. We have bled for peace, Sarah said. The trembling in her voice was gone now. It was replaced by something cold and hard. We have endured your insults. We have paid your tribute. We have begged you to see reason. We have warned you again and again that you were making a mistake. Warned us? Zar then laughed. What will you do, little human? Send your museum pieces to frighten us? You are weak. You have always been weak. And the weak do not make demands of the strong. Sarah stared at him. For 15 years she had played the diplomat. She had smiled at insults, accepted humiliation, and swallowed rage. All for peace. All to give humanity time. But some prices were too high. High Prelate Zarthen, she said clearly. I want to be absolutely clear. This is humanity's final warning. Stop these attacks. Make reparations. Treat us as equals. Or face consequences beyond your comprehension. The chamber erupted in laughter. Even the species that had shown some sympathy before joined in. It was too much. The idea that humanity, weak little humanity, could threaten the entire council was absurd. Zar then stood up from his seat. I have a better idea, Ambassador. Earth will submit completely to council authority. You will dissolve your colonial ventures. You will double your tribute. You will accept military oversight from Kavros forces, or the council will vote to remove humanity from galactic space entirely, by force if necessary. You have 1 week to comply, he continued. Refuse and we will show you what real power looks like. Sarah looked at him for a long moment. Then she gathered her datapads and turned to leave. Where are you going? Zar then demanded. We are not finished. Sarah stopped at the entrance to the chamber. She looked back over her shoulder. Yes, we are, she said. We're done talking. We're done warning you. We're done begging. You've made your choice. She walked out, her team following behind her. Within hours, every human diplomat on the Nexus had packed their belongings and returned to Earth. The embassies were empty. The communication channels went silent. On Earth, the Council of Nations met in emergency session. They reviewed the evidence. They debated for exactly 4 hours. Then they voted. The message was sent to Admiral Okoye in a single word: unleashed. High Prelate Zar then stood in the command center of the Kavros flagship Eternal Dominion, watching his fleet assemble. 2,000 warships from 7 different species, all united under one purpose: the complete subjugation of humanity. It was the largest military force assembled in 3 centuries. Ship after ship emerged from faster-than-light travel, filling the void with weapons and power. Kavros dreadnoughts, Tellurian swarm ships, Vorak carriers, and more. Each one was a masterpiece of destruction, built over thousands of years of galactic warfare. It's beautiful, said War Master Krell, Zarthen's second-in-command. The humans will see this fleet and surrender immediately. There is no other rational choice. Zarthen nodded, his yellow eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Send the scouts ahead. I want full scans of the Sol system. Let us see what pathetic defense the humans have managed to scrape together. The scouts jumped to Earth's system. 10 small fast ships equipped with the best sensors in the galaxy. They arrived expecting to find a few dozen outdated human vessels trying desperately to organize some kind of defense. Instead, they found 500 ships waiting in perfect formation. The scout commander stared at his screens in confusion. These were not the ships they had seen 15 years ago. These vessels were sleek and dark, almost black, shaped like daggers. They made no sound, gave off strange energy readings, and seemed to bend space around them in ways that should not be possible. Get closer, he ordered. I want full scans of those ships. The scouts moved in. That was their first mistake. One of the human ships rotated smoothly to face them. There was no visible weapon discharge, no obvious attack. One moment the scout ship was there, and the next moment it simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply gone, erased from existence as if it had never been. What in the void? The scout commander's voice was shaking. All ships retreat now. 9 scout ships tried to turn and jump away. 3 more disappeared in that same terrible way. 6 managed to escape and jump back to the fleet. The scout commander rushed to Zarthan's command center. His scales were pale with fear. "Hi, Prelate, the humans have a fleet." "A real fleet. The ships are unlike anything in our databases. They have weapons we do not understand." "How many ships?" Zarthan demanded. 500 detected. "But High Prelate, they destroyed 4 of my scouts without even appearing to fire. One moment they were there, the next they were gone. No debris. No energy discharge, nothing," Krell laughed. 500 ships against our 2,000? And you are frightened by some kind of sensor trick? The humans are trying to make us fear them with illusions. But some of the other commanders looked less certain. 500 ships was far more than Earth had ever shown, and strange new weapons were always dangerous. "It does not matter," Zarthan declared. "We outnumber them 4-1. Even if they have been hiding some new technology, numbers will prevail. We jump to Sol system in 1 hour. Prepare for battle." The massive fleet entered faster than light travel together. It was an impressive sight. A swarm of destruction moving as one. They emerged near Earth's orbit, weapons charged, shields at maximum, ready to crush any resistance. Admiral Marcus Okoye sat in the command chair of the flagship Victory, watching the enemy fleet appear on his displays. His face was calm, but his heart was pounding. This was it. Everything humanity had built, all the secrets they had kept, would be revealed in the next few hours. "Enemy fleet detected," reported the tactical officer. "Counting 1,987 vessels. Multiple ship classes. They are forming Standard Council battle formation." "Standard formation," Okoye said quietly. "Against an enemy they know nothing about." Arrogant to the end. He touched his communicator. "All ships, this is Okoye. You have your orders. Show them what we are. Show them why we were holding back. Make them understand." The human fleet moved. They did not charge forward like the Council expected. They did not try to match the enemy formation. Instead, they simply dispersed, each ship moving independently but in perfect coordination. The Kavros fleet opened fire first. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked across space toward the human ships. It should have been devastating, an overwhelming attack that no defense could stop. But the human ships were not there anymore. They had moved before the weapons arrived. Not with conventional drives, but with quantum displacement. One instant they were in one location. The next instant they were somewhere else with no transition between. It was not faster than light travel. It was something else entirely. "Impossible," Zarthan roared. "Nothing can move like that. Find them, target them." The human counterattack began. From the Victory, strange silver spheres launched into space. They looked harmless, about the size of a basketball. But when they reached the Kavros fleet, they bloomed open like flowers, each one releasing billions of nanites. The nanites were so small they passed through shields like they were not there. They attached to hull plating, to weapon systems, to power cores, and then they began to disassemble everything at the molecular level. A Kavros dreadnought, one of the most powerful ships in the galaxy, simply came apart, not exploding but dissolving, breaking down into its component atoms. The crew barely had time to scream before their own bodies were taken apart by the swarm. 12 more ships followed. Then 20. Then 50. "Deploy counter-nanites," Krell shouted. "Electromagnetic pulses! Stop them." But the human nanites were adaptive. Every defense the Council used they evolved around in seconds. AI systems far beyond anything the galaxy possessed guided each microscopic machine, making decisions faster than organic minds could comprehend. And that was only one weapon. Another human ship fired what looked like a simple energy beam. But when it hit a Tellurian carrier, the ship did not explode. Instead, it collapsed inward, crushing down into a point of infinite density. A temporary black hole lasting only seconds but long enough to devour the entire vessel and everything around it. Gravity lances. They called them gravity lances. Zarthan watched in horror as his fleet was torn apart. "All ships concentrate fire. Focus on one human ship at a time. We still outnumber them." The fleet tried to follow orders. 300 ships targeted a single human vessel, pouring everything they had at it. The human ship's shields flared bright blue. They absorbed the assault without even dimming. Then the ship returned fire with what the humans called a relativistic kill missile. The missile used quantum entanglement to arrive at its target before it was fired from a human perspective. It simply appeared inside the enemy formation, traveling at 99% the speed of light. When it hit, it released energy equivalent to a small star going supernova. The explosion took out 67 ships in an instant. The battle lasted 4 hours. In that time, the Council fleet learned true fear. They learned that the outdated vessels Earth had shown them 15 years ago were museum pieces, obsolete technology kept just for display. They learned that humanity had been developing weapons in secret for decades. They learned that every warning the humans had given was not bluster or desperation, but genuine attempts to avoid this exact moment. And they learned far too late that restraint was not weakness. Of the nearly 2,000 ships that entered Sol system, only 73 escaped. The rest were destroyed or captured. Thousands of alien crew members died. Others surrendered and were taken prisoner, treated with more mercy than they had shown New Harmony. Admiral Okoye broadcast a message across all galactic channels. His face appeared on screens throughout Council space, from the Nexus to the farthest colonies. This is Admiral Marcus Okoye of the Earth Defense Fleet. For 15 years, humanity has pleaded for peace. We endured your insults. We paid your tribute. We accepted humiliation.
And we warned you.
We warned you over and over that you were making a terrible mistake. His voice hardened. You did not listen. You attacked our colonies. You killed our civilians. You declared war on people who only wanted to live in peace. So now you face the consequences. This fleet you have seen today is what we are capable of. These weapons are what we were hiding. We did not hide them because we were afraid. We hid them because we were trying to avoid this exact outcome. We were giving you every chance to choose peace, but you chose war, and now you will learn what humanity looks like when we stop holding back. On the Nexus, the remaining Council members watched the broadcast in stunned silence. The species that had mocked humanity 15 years ago could not speak. They had just witnessed the most advanced military force in the galaxy destroy an overwhelming fleet without losing a single ship. Ambassador Chen's words echoed in their memories. Do not mistake restraint for weakness. High Prelate Tsar then sat in his damaged flagship as it limped away from Sol system. His perfect scales were scratched and burned. His eyes, which had always looked at others with contempt, now held only shock. How? He whispered. How did we not know? War Master Krell, bleeding from a head wound, answered quietly. They told us. They warned us. We just did not believe them. Tsar then thought of Ambassador Chen standing in the council chamber trying so hard for peace. He thought of all the times humans had been insulted, exploited, attacked. And he thought of how patient they had been. That patience was gone now. The reckoning had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same. The galaxy held its breath after the Battle of Sol. News of the human victory spread like fire across every inhabited system. 2,000 ships destroyed by 500, weapons that seemed to break the laws of physics. A species that had seemed primitive, revealing technology centuries ahead of anything the Council possessed. But High Prelate Tsar then was not finished. Humiliated and enraged, he returned to Kavros Prime and began rallying his forces. The Kavros Empire was old and vast, with resources spanning hundreds of systems. 2,000 ships were merely the vanguard. He could assemble much more. They had the advantage of surprise, he told his war council. They ambushed us in their home system where they had prepared every advantage. But they cannot defend everywhere at once. We will strike their colonies, force them to spread their fleet thin, and crush them with sheer numbers. The Tellurian Combine agreed. They had lost face and profits in the battle, and the insectoid leaders wanted revenge. The Vorak Confederation, the Gen Collective, and 3 other council species joined the coalition. Together they represented nearly a third of galactic military power. This is a war of extinction now, Tsar then declared in a council session. Only 20 species remained in the council now. The others had quietly withdrawn, unwilling to fight humans. Earth must be destroyed completely. Their species must be erased, or none of us will ever be safe again. But humanity was done waiting for attacks to come. Admiral Okoye stood in the command center on Luna, surrounded by holographic displays showing the entire galaxy. His staff had grown, filled with younger officers who had trained their whole lives for this moment. We have been defensive for 15 years, he said, playing the victim, hoping that reason would prevail. But you cannot reason with beings who see you as inferior, so we will teach them a lesson they will never forget. Captain Rodriguez, now a full admiral herself, pulled up tactical displays. We have confirmed military targets across Kavros, Tellurian, and Vorak space. The question is how hard we hit them. We hit them hard enough that they cannot recover, Okoye said flatly. Hard enough that every other species in the galaxy thinks twice before threatening Earth. But we remain precise. Military targets only. We are not butchers. Sir, they attacked our civilians at New Harmony, which is why we will not become like them. Okoye's voice was firm. We show the galaxy what a civilized species looks like even in war. That is how we win not just the battle, but the peace that follows. The human offensive began 3 days after the Battle of Sol. The first target was a Tellurian military complex. In the Outer Rim, it was a massive facility where the Combine built their swarm ships, protected by orbital defense platforms and a home fleet of 200 vessels. The Tellurians detected the human fleet approaching and scrambled to defend. 200 ships rose to meet 50 human vessels. The defenders were confident. Even with superior technology, they still had numbers. The battle lasted 37 minutes. Human ships moved through the Tellurian fleet like sharks through schools of fish. Their quantum displacement drives made them impossible to predict or target effectively. Their weapons were surgical, destroying enemy ships with single shots. And most terrifying of all, their AI tactical systems coordinated every ship into a perfect whole, making decisions and adjustments faster than any organic command structure could manage. When it was over, the Tellurian home fleet was destroyed. Not a single human ship was lost. The military complex was disabled, its manufacturing capabilities offline, and humanity broadcast their message across all channels. This facility has been neutralized. The workers inside are unharmed. We targeted only military capabilities. Surrender and you will be treated fairly. Continue fighting, and we will continue winning. The message sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Humanity was not just winning. They were winning perfectly. High Prelate Zarthan refused to surrender. Instead, he became more desperate. The Kavros Empire had one weapon they had never used, a weapon so terrible that galactic law forbade its creation: stellar collapse weapons. Devices that could destabilize a star and cause it to go supernova, destroying everything in the system. Zarthan authorized their use against human colony worlds. Ambassador Sarah Chen received intelligence about the weapons from a surprising source. A member of the council, a being called Speaker Ven from the Alari Collective, sent a secret communication. Ambassador Chen, the message read, I must break my oath of neutrality to warn you. Zarthan has activated stellar collapse weapons targeting 3 of your colonies, Redfern, New Shanghai, and Hope's Landing. The weapons will detonate within 48 hours. I am ashamed that my civilization stood by while this happened. Please forgive us and please stop him. Sarah felt ice in her veins. 3 colonies, nearly 200,000 people, and 48 hours to save them. She sent the intelligence to Admiral Okoye immediately. Okoye gathered his command staff. Can we stop the weapons? Not if they are already in place and activated, Rodriguez said. The stellar collapse process is quantum locked. Even if we destroy the devices, the reaction will continue. Then we evacuate the colonies. Admiral, evacuating 200,000 people in 48 hours is impossible. Our transport capacity make it possible. Okoye's fist slammed on the table. I will not lose more civilians. Deploy every transport ship we have. Commandeer civilian vessels if necessary. And send our fastest ships to Kavros Prime now. The next 48 hours were chaos. Human transport ships jumped in and out of the 3 targeted systems, pulling people off planets as fast as physically possible. Mothers grabbed children. Elderly people were carried aboard by soldiers. Pets were stuffed into carriers. Everything else was left behind. They saved 187,000 people. 13,000 could not be evacuated in time. The stars collapsed. 3 human colonies, 3 beautiful worlds that people had called home, were consumed by supernovas. The deaths were instant at least. Small mercy in an act of monstrous cruelty. Admiral Okoye watched the readings as the stars died. 13,000 people. 13,000 faces he would never know. 13,000 lives snuffed out because one arrogant leader could not accept defeat. Rodriguez, he said quietly. Ready the fleet, all of it. We are going to Kavros Prime. Sir, that is their home system. They will have thousands of ships defending it. I know. Okoye's voice was cold as the void. Ready the fleet. The human armada jumped to Kavros Prime 3 days later. 700 ships, everything Earth could deploy. They emerged at the edge of the system, and the Kavros defense fleet rushed to meet them. 3,000 ships. The largest home defense force ever assembled. Kavros dreadnoughts, carriers, destroyers, fighters. Every vessel the Empire could bring to bear. Against them, 700 human ships that had become legend across the galaxy. The Battle of Kavros Prime would be studied for generations. High Prelate Tsar then commanded from his fortress on the planet's surface. He watched the battle unfold on massive screens, seeing his fleet move to engage the humans. At first, he was confident. 3,000 ships against 700. Even with human technology, surely numbers would tell. Then the human fleet demonstrated something new. They had been holding back even more. From the flagship Victory, Admiral Okoye activated the consciousness-linked tactical network. Every ship in the human fleet connected to a quantum AI that could predict enemy movements before they happened. Not by magic or psychic powers, but by analyzing every tiny piece of data. Every engine signature, every communication, every tactical pattern, and calculating probable outcomes billions of times per second. The human fleet knew where every enemy ship would be before they moved there. The result was not a battle. It was a symphony of destruction, perfectly choreographed. Human ships moved like they were dancing, always in the right place at the right time. They targeted weak points with impossible precision. They coordinated across the entire fleet without needing verbal commands, and they were merciless. Kavros ships exploded by the dozens, then by the hundreds. The defenders tried every tactic they knew. They tried overwhelming single targets. They tried flanking maneuvers. They tried kamikaze runs. Nothing worked. The humans anticipated everything and countered perfectly. In 72 hours of continuous fighting, the Kavros defense fleet was destroyed. 3,000 ships reduced to debris. The orbital defense platforms were disabled, and the human fleet took up positions above Kavros Prime. Their weapons pointed at the planet below. Tsar then stood in his fortress, surrounded by his war council. Outside, the sky was filled with human ships. His empire, the great Kavros Empire that had dominated this region of space for 10,000 years, was defeated. Admiral Okoye's face appeared on every screen across the planet. High Prelate Tsar then, Okoye said, his voice carrying to billions of Kavros civilians, "Your fleet is destroyed. Your military is broken. You used weapons of mass destruction against civilian populations. By the laws of warfare that your own council wrote, you are guilty of crimes against civilization. I am offering you one chance. Surrender yourself for trial. Accept peace terms, or I will treat your planet the way you treated our colonies." Tsar then wanted to refuse. His pride, his honor. 18 months after the war began, it ended. The remaining members of the coalition surrendered one by one. The Tellurian Combine, seeing their homeworld under siege, capitulated within days of Kavros Prime's fall. The Vorak Confederation lasted longer, trying to negotiate better terms, but eventually accepted that there was no negotiating position left. Humanity had won. Completely and utterly. Ambassador Sarah Chen returned to the Nexus for the first time in nearly 2 years. The station looked the same, but everything felt different. As she walked through the corridors, aliens stepped aside. Some bowed their heads. Others stared with expressions mixing fear and respect. The council chamber was half empty. Many species had withdrawn from the council entirely during the war, unwilling to take sides. Only 23 remained now, and they all stood as Sarah entered. "Please sit," Sarah said tiredly. "We are not here for ceremony. We are here to build peace." Speaker Ven of the Aleri Collective spoke first. The elderly alien's voice was soft but clear. "Ambassador Chen, on behalf of those species who remained neutral during the conflict, I must apologize. We knew you were treated unfairly. We knew Tsar then was leading us toward disaster. But we did nothing. We were cowards, and we are ashamed." Sarah looked at the speaker for a long moment. "You sent us intelligence about the stellar collapse weapons. You warned us in time to save nearly 200,000 lives. That was not cowardice, Speaker Ven. That was courage when it mattered most." Another council member, a being that resembled a crystalline tree, chimed with worry. "What will Earth demand of us now? You have won the war. Your military is supreme. You could make us all servants or worse." "We could," Sarah agreed. "But we will not. Humanity did not fight this war to conquer. We fought to survive and to make certain no one would threaten us again. She activated a holographic display showing a document. This is the proposed charter for a new galactic commonwealth. Not a council where older species dominate younger ones, but a true union of equals. Every species gets equal representation. Decisions require consensus, not the approval of the powerful. And aggressive war becomes illegal, enforced by a unified peacekeeping force. You want us to have equal power with you? Another member asked, confused. After everything? Yes, Sarah said simply. Because peace built on conquest does not last. Peace built on fear does not last. The only peace that endures is peace built on mutual respect and justice. Admiral Okoye was in a different kind of meeting. He stood in a courthouse on Earth watching as High Prelate Zarthan was led into the room for trial. The Kavros leader looked smaller now. His scales had dulled. His eyes held none of their former arrogance. He was just a tired old being who had made terrible choices. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Evidence was presented methodically and fairly. Zarthan was allowed to speak in his defense. When he tried to claim he had been following military necessity, the prosecution showed recordings of his speeches calling for human extinction. The verdict was guilty on all counts. War crimes, crimes against civilization and use of forbidden weapons. The sentence came from a panel of judges representing multiple species, including humans. They debated for hours on the appropriate punishment. Death, some argued. He killed thousands of civilians deliberately. Justice demands execution, but others disagreed. If we execute him, we prove that violence is the answer. We become what he claimed we were. In the end, the sentence was life imprisonment with mandatory rehabilitation. Zarthan would spend the rest of his life in a facility designed not just to punish, but to help him understand what he had done wrong and why. When the sentence was read, Zarthan expected rage or satisfaction from the humans in the room. Instead, he saw only sadness. Admiral Okoye spoke to him privately before he was taken away. Do you understand yet? Okoye asked. Understand what? Zarthan's voice was bitter. That you defeated me? No. Okoye shook his head. That we never wanted to defeat you. We wanted to be your friends. We came to the galaxy hoping to learn and share and build something beautiful together. You made us into warriors, High Prelate. Every human who died, every ship we built, every weapon we created was because you and your allies forced us to defend ourselves. You were always warriors, Zarthan spat. You simply hid it. We were always capable of being warriors, Okoye corrected. Every species is, but being capable of violence and choosing violence are very different things. We chose restraint. We chose patience. We chose peace until you left us no choice. That is the lesson you failed to learn. Zarthan was silent for a long time. Then quietly, I saw your soldiers giving food to my people after the siege. Why? Because they were hungry, Okoye said simply. Because they are not soldiers. They are people. And people help each other when they can. It would take years for Zarthan to truly understand, but in that moment, the first seed of comprehension was planted. The war reparations were unusual by galactic standards. Yes, the defeated species had to pay compensation to human colonies that were attacked, but Earth also invested heavily in rebuilding what the war had destroyed. Kavros Prime received humanitarian aid. Medical supplies, food, infrastructure assistance. Human engineers helped repair damage from the siege. Human doctors treated wounded Kavros civilians. Why are they helping us? A young Kavros asked his teacher. We tried to kill them. The teacher, an old Kavros who had watched the whole war, thought carefully before answering. Because they are showing us what they tried to tell us all along. That strength is not just the ability to destroy, but the choice not to. They are teaching us what a truly advanced civilization looks like. Within 2 years, the Galactic Commonwealth was established. 47 species joined, including all the original council members plus several new ones. The headquarters remained on the Nexus, but the structure was completely different. Ambassador Sarah Chen was elected as the first Commonwealth Secretary, chosen by the vote of all member species. In her acceptance speech, she was careful to acknowledge the past while looking toward the future. We have all made mistakes, she said. Humanity included. We hid our capabilities out of fear, and that secrecy bred distrust. We should have been more open, more willing to trust that others would see reason. Perhaps if we had been honest from the beginning, this war could have been avoided. But we cannot change the past. We can only build a better future. A future where no species fears another, where disputes are resolved through dialogue, not destruction, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. This is not humanity's commonwealth. This is our commonwealth. All of us together. Admiral Okoye addressed the Earth Defense Fleet in a ceremony on Luna. Half of the warships were being decommissioned. They were no longer needed. You have served with honor, he told the assembled crews. You were ready to die to protect humanity, and thank the universe most of you did not have to. Now we enter a new phase. Some of you will remain in the Commonwealth Peacekeeping Force. Others will return to civilian life. All of you will be remembered as the generation that secured our place in the galaxy. He paused, looking out at the young faces. But I want you to remember one thing. Victory in war is necessary sometimes, but the real victory is in how you behave after the war. Show mercy, show compassion, teach others what you have learned. That is how we truly win. 25 years after the war ended, a new species made first contact with the Commonwealth. They were called the Zanari, a reptilian species from the far side of the galaxy. They approached with caution, broadcasting peaceful intentions but clearly nervous. The Commonwealth sent an ambassador to greet them. It was a human, a young woman named Michelle Torres, who had been a child during the war. Welcome, she said warmly. We are the Galactic Commonwealth. We are a union of equals, dedicated to peace and mutual prosperity. What brings you to us? The Zanari captain looked around nervously at the Commonwealth fleet that had come to escort them safely to the Nexus. The ships were clearly powerful, built with technology beyond anything the Zanari had. We heard stories, the captain said, stories of humans, that you destroyed thousands of ships in a great war, that you have weapons that can erase stars. We wanted to see if the stories were true, to know if we should fear you. Michelle smiled gently. The stories are true. Humanity has powerful weapons, and so do many of our allies, but we keep those weapons locked away. We use them only to defend, never to conquer. But you could conquer, the captain said. Why do you not? Because conquest is easy, Michelle replied. Any species with enough weapons can dominate others through fear. But building something together, creating a civilization where everyone contributes and everyone benefits, that is hard. That requires patience, wisdom, and restraint. She gestured to the diverse crew on her ship. Humans, Kavros, Tellurians, Vorak, Alari, and a dozen other species working side by side. We learned that lesson the hard way. We tried to avoid war and failed. But we also learned that how you win matters as much as winning. We showed mercy when we could have shown vengeance, and that choice made all the difference. The Zanari captain was quiet, processing this. Then, we would like to learn more about your Commonwealth. Perhaps join if you will have us.